Hello, welcome to Making Money with Guitars, and in this episode of the show is someone who is hugely responsible for me picking up and trying out guitar in the first place. I know, I think the guitar world is far, far richer for having Jimi Humphries in it, and at the beginning of this chat I'm actually quite starstruck because of the depth of influence he's had on my life. So, let's go over to the... Hey everybody, welcome to Making Money with Guitars with me, Andy Ferris, and I am frankly honoured to be speaking to Jimi Humphries. Hey Jimi.
Hello Andy, how are you? Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for putting up with my technical issues today.
Yeah, it was quite comical. I enjoyed it.
It's just an error between here and here. That was the only problem.
Normally my error is between here and here, so yeah.
Yeah, I get that as well.
We're all good now.
So, rather than me briefly explain what you do and who you are, would you just lay down what you are and how you have a career in guitar, Jimi?
Okay. Well, I started playing guitar back in the dark ages, and I think I started playing guitar in about 1976, 77, something like that. Uh-huh. I should be really good by now. But yeah, it was a long time ago, and I sort of went the whole route of trying to be a rock star. I had some lessons with a local guy who was very good, and sort of did my own thing really, and had a band that came sort of very close to getting somewhere. And then Nirvana released Nevermind, and no one was really interested anymore. And so,
no,
yeah, it was. We were having record company meetings, and but my Ibanez had flowers on it, and so did my trousers. So at that point, everything changed. But I was kind of true to my love of the guitar and what I wanted to do, and I wasn't really too into the whole kind of fashion and fad thing. I was very much into, this is me, this is what I do. And so I thought to myself, I'm going to become a session guitar player. And I used to read like Sounds and NME and go through the adverts in the back, and never had much luck. And so I started jamming with a friend of mine, John, and on one particular jam session, I think we were playing some Skid Row or something equally as hip at that time. He said to me, "Oh, I've got Phil Hilborne's phone number." And for those of you that don't know who Phil is, shame on you. Phil was pretty much instrumental in starting Guitar Techniques magazine, and he was a long-time columnist for Guitarist. In fact, he still is doing those magazines. I think he's been with them like 40 odd years or something. And so I'd seen Phil's band, and Phil was kind of known as the guitar sort of guru at that point in the printed magazines. And so I phoned him up, and he didn't reply to my call. He didn't phone me back. So I phoned him up again and kept hassling him, and in the end he answered or phoned me back and booked me in for a lesson. I used to read Phil's magazine columns. I used to do my paper round, and on a Saturday morning I'd go in after collecting my money from everyone's houses and counting it up and getting my £5. I'd buy a copy of Guitarist magazine, and this was in about 1984, 1985, something like this. So I went up to Phil's house. I had my floral shirt, my incredibly long hair, my floral Ibanez and my cowboy boots, and I thought I was the shit. And I sat in front of him, and he said to me, "Play something." And I could play these kind of like very outside sort of shape-based. I was really into Francis Dunnery from It Bites. And so I was playing all this stuff, thinking I was absolutely awesome. And he said to me, "Can you play me a C major scale?" And I went, "So what's that then?" And so at that point, I embarked on this journey with Phil and studied very hard. And it got to the point, it was fantastic, where Phil would book me for a lesson right at the end of the day. And, or at the end of the day in the afternoon. And I'd drive over to his house, and it would be like 11 o'clock at night and my mum would be on the phone. Where are you? Oh, I'm still at Phil's. And so like a 1 hour lesson would end up to us having dinner, watching videos, putting albums on. And he really took me under his wing. It's so much so I asked him to be a godfather of my daughter. He's like my second dad. So, and he taught me a lot about, theory and playing, and introduced me to a lot of different guitar players. And it was at that point that he was starting up Guitar Techniques magazine. And so I saw all the initial sort of tab and everything being put together. And so I kept sort of saying, I can transcribe stuff. And he was like, yeah, you've got a good set of ears. I could do that job, please. And so eventually on one lesson, he said, look, do you want to have a go? I hassled him so much. And so I wrote out my first transcription, which was Walk This Way by Aerosmith. And this was in 1995. And I recorded the session in his studio. And that was it. That was it. I was in Guitar Techniques magazine at, 95. I would have been, 23, 24 years old, something like that. And so eventually I ended up getting my own full-time column with them. And it was at the same time that I did a local, a guitar show at a store. I was teaching guitar at this point full-time. And it was like a Marshall amps evening. And so I did this, I was using a Marshall, I've still got my Marshall rack down. I was using a JMP1 rack. And I did like this Jimi Hendrix medley. I recorded it all on my little 4-track Foztex. And Phil helped me, mix it and master it. And we did a load of work on it. And this demo went really well. And the guys from Music Man were there. And so at a very early age, I'd become fascinated with Music Man guitars because of Steve Morse and Van Halen. And I used to be the long-haired kid at the Olympia guitar show in London. At the end of the day, they'd be prizing the Van Halen Music Man out of my hand because I was like, I need this guitar. And so eventually, obviously, I met them again. And they were like, you were that kid with long hair? And I was like, yeah, that was me. It's getting a bit, now. And so they said, we'd like to work with you. And so they sent me a guitar. And I was like, holy crap, someone's just given me a Music Man. So I did a demo for them. And then they said, we're going to need the guitar back. I said, okay. And then it was at this point that Guitar Techniques said, would you like your own column? And then Phil, again, bless him, he spoke to the guys at Total Accuracy, which is obviously now Lick Library, and said, I've got this guitar student. He's great at transcribing. He writes score. And so they called me up and offered me a job writing guitar books and doing CDs. So I told Music Man this. I said, actually, I've just got these two quite good gigs. So they said, hold on to the guitar. And the next thing, I got a letter from America, and it was a contract. And so I signed a contract with them. It was kind of everything happened at once. And then from that point on, I did Guitar Techniques. I did quite a few books for Total Accuracy. I did the Jam With series. And then eventually they started getting into doing videos. So I did the first ever Lick Library DVD, kids. That was me. I did classic solos with Stuart Ball. And then from there, I was teaching at the ACM in Guildford. I taught at BIM Brighton. I taught at Guitar X. I was doing stuff with Music Man, going out to America and playing, and started doing a lot of session work as well for a gentleman called Magnus Fiennes, Ralph Fiennes' brother, Voldemort's brother. So I did, yeah, that was pretty cool. So I did stuff, a lot of TV shows like The Hustle on BBC One and The Fixer on ITV. And what else did I do? I did a kids' cartoon called Free Phonics, and I played with the guitar and bass on that. So I was doing a lot of session work at the Townhouse studio up in London. And then eventually I started doing a bit more sort of chart stuff, working with a producer. I had a single in the charts for a while, which was quite odd. And then there was a lot of kind of missed auditions, things that I went for. I went for the Jamiroquai job. I went for Ozzy Osbourne when I was very young, 23 actually. I have the letter from Ozzy on the wall out there in the big room of my studio. And then eventually, one morning, I had an email from Neil Murray, the bass player of Whitesnake. And he said, I'm the bass player at We Will Rock You, and we'd like to get you in for an audition. And so at that same day, my friend Dave Kilminster, who's an incredible guitar player and has played guitar for Roger Waters for many years, he wrote to me or texted me and said, check your email. And I said, I have. He said, no, what? Check your email. You've got an email. I said, I know. Neil Murray. He was like, what? Check your email, you idiot. So I checked my email again, and there was an email from a management company that had come through Roger Waters, and I got the gig with the Australian Pink Floyd show. So I was then, within a few, it was like, I've got a job, what, eh? And I went off and toured with that for a few years all around America. From that job, I ended up doing another big arena show in America called the Mystic Orchestra with the bass player from Quiet Riot. I got Phil on guitar on that. That was really cool. Keyboard player from Richie Blackmore's band. And it was a bit of an ill-fated tour, but it was fun. And then from there, I ended up, through Phil again, coming to Sweden to play with a Swedish artist. And I met a singer called Kerry Ellis. And one day I was driving back from the ACM, and she phoned me up and said, are you up for doing a gig? No, she sent me a text, you up for doing a gig? And I said, yeah, here's the date. I said, what is it? She said, it's at Hyde Park with Brian May. I was like, I'm sorry? And she said, yes, Brian would like to meet you. So I then was in at We Will Rock You. I was doing We Will Rock You London as a sub. And so I got a call from Brian's management company, and they were like, Brian would like to meet you. And I was a bit excited. And so
I'll say
I had to then do the first act of We Will Rock You with Brian sitting in the box watching. And I could see his silhouette. It was a bit like yours, actually, Andy. Yeah. I could see the silhouette of Brian, and I was absolutely crapping myself playing all the tunes. And then he came up onto the bandstand and was like, Jimi. And this is a classic. I had my Red Special guitar, and he said, what guitar's that? And I went, it's one of yours, Brian. And he was like, I know that, but which model? I was like, oh, God, sort of. But I ended up playing with Brian and touring with Brian, and then I did a bit with the Brian May Band. And then it was my 40th birthday, and we had a rehearsal at Brian's. And when I got there, he'd laid on a little party for me. He bought me a Nintendo 3DS with Lego Star Wars, because I was always stealing his on tour. And he asked me if I was up for doing a gig with Queen. Which was like, oh my God, So I ended up doing the Freddie Mercury's 65th birthday party, and playing with Jeff Beck, Mike Rutherford, and Brian. But then sadly, that was the end. That was the end of my time, and Brian went back to single guitar. But since I ended up moving to Sweden through meeting my partner, doing a show here, and I work a lot for Live Nation here. Ended up touring with Iggy Pop, doing a thing with Henry Rollins, which was pretty cool. Playing Black Sabbath tunes in a stadium with Henry Rollins was the most heavy metal thing I've ever done in my life. I've worked with Key Marcello from Europe, done We Will Rock You all over Germany, in Switzerland, in Austria, Denmark. So a lot of Queen. So yeah, it's kind of me, really. I do a lot of teaching still, and these days I do product demos for Mesa Boogie. That came about through doing the shows with Henry Rollins, and that's kind of it. write books, written 3 of my own books, had my own TV show for a while, a guitar TV show. Yeah, it's been a long journey, Andy, and I'm feeling old. So, yeah, there you are.
I feel required to say, is that it? Because I'm British.
Yeah, sorry about that. I did go off on one then. But yeah, that was kind of condensed down. It's been an interesting journey making a living as a guitar player. Very unexpected. Lots of highs, but also lots of lows. I think that one thing that Phil taught me was, you have to enjoy the lows to enjoy the highs. You can't always be, sort of up there. And there's been a couple of occasions where I thought to myself, is this for me anymore? Do I really want to do this? And then all of a sudden you find, your mojo again. And my mojo recently has been, having a child has really inspired me. And I then built a studio. I have my own building now with a big live room out there. And so, yeah, things are good. I think it's been a journey, Andy. It's been very much a journey.
Yeah, I hope it continues. It sounds like many people I've spoken to, however, you're bringing up names and you're bringing up experiences that are certainly in a whole different world to what I'm used to normally. So I do indeed recognize the names of Phil and all those other people. When you started doing guitar techniques is when I started playing guitar.
Yes.
So I was very used to seeing your face in that little box and reading your column and seeing Phil and seeing the lick library stuff or the total accuracy. And the one thing that sticks in my head is that 4 count of those click drums at the beginning of every backing track.
Yes. Yep.
And whenever I hear that I recognize that tone exactly. And that came into my head as you were saying about that. But man, as a guitar player, that's quite a journey so far.
Well, it's quite funny because I feel things have gone a full circle. I've been doing Guitar Interactive. I actually was a big part in setting up the first ever issue of Guitar Interactive. I think I did every technical column that was in there. I've done Premier Guitar, I've done Total Guitar, Guitarist, Guitar World. I did some teaching in other schools. I taught at the MI in Japan. I did some stuff there and in America. But just recently, I've just completed my first guitar techniques column in 8 or 9 years. So
wow,
I've just actually programmed that again.
No,
it's there. It is there. I did it. The classic GT stick counting. So yeah.
Yeah, that is deeply ingrained in my head.
Yes. And
in my fingers, the sweat starts to come when I hear those 4 clicks. Ah!
The pressure's on to get it right.
So you are a session guitar player, session musician, and obviously businessman. That's all part of the same thing. I think the one, people that are watching this right now maybe want to follow in your footsteps or just want to pick up some tips for guitar playing or guitar careers. And there was something you kind of missed in your story when you said that you met Phil and you went to his house and you played your Widdly Widdlies and then he asked you to play the C major scale.
Yes.
What happened, and you said you had to learn, what happened between not knowing what the C major scale was and then suddenly working for a guitar magazine?
Well, Phil is a very knowledgeable guy when it comes to music theory. He's very meticulous, and so his lessons were very structured and very organised. And he introduced me to a lot of things. I obviously learning my modes. I wanted to learn my modes. I'd read about them in the guitar magazines, but didn't really understand what modes were. And so I, like most guitar players, I learnt the 3-note per string shapes. And then from there, I was watching, the Paul Gilbert VHS videos. I was watching the Steve Moore stuff, trying to get all these lines down. But the one thing that I think I had was I had a very good ear. So I'd always worked things out as a kid. I used to do I'd be walking to school, singing things and thinking, oh, that sounds like this note. And I go home and I put the record on, I play, oh, okay, I'm right. I'm identifying notes by ear. And Phil kind of picked up on that, but there was a lot of stuff that didn't make sense to me to do with modes. Well, why, if I play this D Dorian shape here at the 10th fret, this 3-note per string thing, how come you're playing down at the 5th fret and then at the 7th fret and at the 3rd fret and at the 1st fret? I didn't take the concept of D Dorian was part of C major, so you had all of these other shapes. It was actually just one scale. And it was when I played, before I had lessons, I play a pentatonic scale like we all do, but I would fill in the gaps. And I didn't, sometimes now I understand it. If there was an A minor chord, for argument's sake, I might land on an F note if it went to the next chord and it was a D minor. But then you could also put that F sharp note into that A minor pentatonic, and that would sound cool. So I didn't know the difference between, say, Aeolian or Phrygian or Dorian. Sometimes I'd land on the right note, sometimes I wouldn't land on the right note. So one of the things that Phil taught me was the cage system of looking at a pentatonic and then looking at the other shape overlaying over the top. So learning the extra 2 notes. And that was amazing for me, because then he showed me this whole thing of organising all of your chords of the harmonised scale in blocks, 5 blocks, so I could play C major, all 7 chords in one position. So you'd end up with like 35 chords. 35 chords across, I had to think then, across the whole neck, and then doing that in key cycles. There was a lot of things where he would get me playing. He put the metronome in front of him. This is a classic. And he'd have the metronome going and he'd be like, come on, that's only on this tempo. And I'd be, oh my God, really struggling. And it was only after, years later, he was like, oh, I used to lie about my tempos with you. They were always 10 or 15 BPM higher. And then there was the ruler. That was another thing. I'd be playing and the ruler would slide down the neck and twat my thumb if my hand wasn't in the right place. And then on one occasion, I turned up and he'd set me all this sight reading practice and all this other stuff. And I got there and I had a job at the time, and I was working for a graphic design company. I wanted to do 2 things as a kid. I either wanted to draw cartoon comic books or play guitar. 2 really safe careers. And, how about a bank? Or, no, I'm going to draw cartoon characters. And so I had this job that kind of at least incorporated a little bit of the stuff I'd learned when I went to art school. And I just run out of time getting everything done. And I got to the lesson and he said, right, do this, do that. I said, oh, I didn't quite finish that. Get out. I was like, I beg your pardon? He said, don't waste my time. Off you go. And he kicked me out the lesson. And I got in my car and I was like, you twat. I was really angry. And I was driving down the road and then I suddenly thought, you just taught me a lesson there. So I sheepishly phoned him up a couple of days later. Oh, I'm sorry. And for the next sort of few days I was practicing and he said to me then, I'll tone down the language for the kids, but it was basically poo or get off the pot was his term. If you're going to do it, do it. If you're not, don't. So I went to my parents and said, look, Phil's just told me to either poo or get off the pot in polite terms. And so I was practicing one night in my bedroom and my dad come up and sat with me, sat down on my bed, showed me a piece of paper and said, there you go, what do you think of that? And I said, what's that, Dad? And he said, it's a plan for your own studio. And so my dad converted a big section of our garage and built a room within a room, and I had my own studio. They said, you can set up your teaching there and we'll pay you a small wage, but you get up in the morning and you start practicing at 9 a.m. and you finish at 5:30. You practice as if you've got a job. And I was like, are you kidding me? So I quit the job, and I used to just sit at home all day studying and practicing. And I've got files, I've got a storage in England full of box files of manuscript and exercises and loads of stuff. But that was, yeah, that's what happened.
You gave me goosebumps when you said your dad put that on the bed. I was like, wow, that truly just that made my whole body react.
It was really cool. My parents are incredible, and they have supported me, through absolutely everything that I've ever done with music, and I'm so fortunate. My dad played guitar, so I think there was a bit of him, living it a little bit through me, I guess. And when I was doing the Australian Pink Floyd show, they used to fly out to America and come and see me play in a big arena. So I think it was kind of nice for them to sort of see how it paid off. But yeah, he built a frame and put plasterboard on and laid some carpet, fitted a radiator, and I had some guitar posters on the walls. And I used to have my students come out and sit on a really uncomfortable little chair. But that it gave me a space where I could get going, I could get started, sure. and it also gave me an opportunity to be able to play guitar all day, and that's what I did.
So would you say that's the key in taking this seriously as a career is to spend the time playing?
I think that I think things are a little bit different now, or very, very, very different now. In fact, I think that. Rightly or wrongly, I shouldn't really say this, Andy, because we're on your YouTube channel, and I have a...
You say what you want, man. I kind of guess what you're going to say, but go for it.
I have a YouTube channel as well. I think that people get it handed to them on a plate a little bit these days. I've known Guthrie. I've been friends with Guthrie since 94, 95, and I've been friends with Dave Kilminster about the same. And those two guys, they were huge influences on me. And I was lucky enough, I made a CD with Guthrie. We put an EP out together, and we did a lot of clinics together for Cornford amps in America in the early 2000s. And that guy, I've spent many evenings drinking far too much beer in some hotel room with Guthrie with a guitar just saying, play that. Guthrie, can you do that? Can you play like this? And that guy immersed himself in so much music. It's unbelievable. And I did to a point, maybe I just, lacked the technical ability, I don't know, to never really reach that. I think he is slightly alien. I've got my own thing that I do, but I think that having that sort of drive, writing letters to people for auditions and, driving across the country in your van with your gear in just to go and play, I think it carves you out to be a certain type of musician and a certain type of person. And that's not to say, and I don't want people to take that as an arrogant statement like, when I was a kid, I lived in a cardboard box in the street and things were, I just think that there's so much information nowadays. I think that it can be a little bit overwhelming. And I think that you only have to go, something, and it's there. Mm. I think that a lot of the guys from my generation, they hunted the stuff out, and you had to, it was harder, I think. I agree. I probably just dug myself a big hole, then everyone's going to be like, hating on me.
But you have the experience to back that up. You're not just writing in some social media comment, it sucks now, it used to be great back in the day. You have the experience with which to back that up. And I'm in the middle of both those worlds, so I came in at the tail end of what you've experienced, or not your style of learning, and then at the beginning of the new internet age.
Yes,
and I think I was born either 10 years too late or 10 years too early. In my time, because when I was starting, everything was up in the air, and there was the internet sort of promoting music, so that was exciting. But then you could download music for free, so music had lost its worth.
Yes.
And like you, I was told to either do it or not, and I went for it, and I'm very happy where I am right now in life. But there were some dark times, man, and there still are, as you've said, But I think there's a part of either being professional there, or just being human. Okay, this sucks at the moment, but it's going to get better.
Yes, yeah. I think that if I get people write to me on social media and say, what would you advise? I'm doing this. What would you advise that I do? And I've always tried to do maybe 3 or 4 different things. First of all, have my playing to a level that is able to achieve what I want to achieve and enables me to be able to do a gig and be able to step into something, can step into a role successfully. To give you an example of being, put on the spot, I have 2 examples of being put on the spot. The first example was with Brian, and we were playing Tie Your Mother Down on a gig, and there was a point where we all went up to the front of the stage, me and Neil Fairclough, the current bass player for Queen, and it was a bit of a status quo moment at the front, standing with our red specials. Neil was playing a red special bass, and so I always look forward to that moment. I had a couple of moments with Brian where we walk up on the front and we did his song Last Horizon, and we do the harmonies together. He was very gracious with that. But this particular gig, Brian looked round to give us the call, and I was first up. I was over that monitor wedge like a horse, jumping,
Majestic.
Yeah, majestically leaping over the fence, and I was down the front. And with that, Brian broke a string.
Oh, no.
So Brian exits stage left. I look round to Kerry, the singer, and she's like on the riser with the backing singers, and she's like, nope. And I look at Neil, and Neil's like, I'm not coming down there with you. And all of a sudden, there's this bald man standing on the front of the stage with his red special. And I look round at Brian, and Brian's put his spare guitar on, and I'm like, as if to say, help. And he just stood there and went, nope. So I ended up having to take this solo and doing this thing, and it was very funny. I felt a bit kind of standing there with my underpants round my ankles, but having the balls to sort of step up to the plate and take that. And another example, I was doing an 80s hard rock tour for Live Nation a couple of years ago, and I was with Key Marcello from Europe. And I was, I guess, Key's wingman. Although he was very generous as well, he's a good friend, and I got to do the jump solo in an arena, and all these. There was some quite cool stuff, but there was one song. There was a Thunderstruck by AC/DC, and Key was meant to go backstage, go up on this big riser, and come up across the top with all the big video screens. Bearing in mind these are sort of 15, 20,000 seater ice hockey arenas, so they're big. And so the drummer kicks off, and we're all standing there. And then I could hear in my in-ears of the MD, Key. And you, oh, shit. And he was just down the back talking to the guitar tech, having a drink of water and, getting ready. And it was no time for him to then run up the stairs, across the back, out, because all the cues with the video. So I just got Jimi in my in-ear monitors. And so I'm like, how does this go? Shit. And there's, 15,000 people all thunder in front of you. And the spotlights will come down, and all of a sudden, I'm covering that part. And so my point being, I think that you have to have your shit together to be able to do that. I think it takes a different type of guitar player. I think it takes not a different type of guitar player. I think it takes a different mentality. Nowadays, there are some phenomenal guys on YouTube. There are some guys on there that I can't even spell what they play, let alone play it, But I think that there's being able to be put into that situation of dealing with, being put on the spot in a professional environment. I think being a good person to be on tour with, getting on with people, being on time, not being an arse, was, So I wasn't a dig, Andy. Andy was 10 minutes late.
I think it was 17, actually.
Was it 17? I was being generous.
Yeah,
then.
you were.
But, being on time, having your gear sorted out, having your sound sorted out, being prepared, learning the songs. When I learn stuff for a tour, I even know what the other guitar player's doing or what the bass player's doing or what everyone else is doing, because I don't want to rely on a vocal cue to all of a sudden be like, where am I? Another example of this, one more story, if you like. A friend of mine, Thomas Wikström, a Swedish singer, fantastic singer. He's in the band Therion. And he was out in Spain doing this symphonic Queen show with an orchestra. And he phoned me up, I think it was 2 days after New Year's Day, a couple of years ago, and said, we need a guitar player. They'd taken on this guitar player, bless him, and he really struggled, and it was so much material, learning all the intricate parts of Brian, getting the sounds, and he was sort of sitting there with his 7-string Ibanez, like, I'm not the right guy for this job. And so they were panicking because they had the first show. And so Thomas said, I know the guy who could do this. And so they phoned me, and he phoned me and said, would you come down and do it? And I said, okay, well, yeah. When is it? Tomorrow. I was like, no, when is it? He said, it's tomorrow. So I literally got my stuff together and got on a plane that night, got down to Spain, stayed the night, went in, rehearsed all day with an orchestra, a long set of Queen, and did the first gig that night. And I made one mistake. And that mistake was I played the guitar lick at the beginning of I Want to Break Free the way I would normally play it in We Will Rock You, which was slightly early. And everyone got a bit thrown by that. I was like, we're playing over D, for God's sake. Just play D and I'll play it again. But having the I think the balls, I think that's the thing. I might not be the most technically gifted, flashiest guitar player in the world, but I've got balls. So, being up, just putting yourself in that situation where you can just play, I guess. And I think that those things I've always held on to, and I guess I learnt those things from Phil, really,
It sounds like it. It sounds like you say yes to a lot, and you're very open to experiences, and by saying no, you shut it down straight away. So by saying yes, you're open. But are there any times when you have said no? So you said this guy with the 7-string Ibanez was not the right guy for that gig. Do you know when you're not the right guy for the gig? Or do you just take do you take any old stuff?
Weddings, funerals, bar mitzvahs. I'll play at the opening of an envelope. No, I don't think I've ever said. I may have sort of said to people, maybe I'm not the right person for this. Maybe you should consider someone else. But it's always seemed to work out really. In experience, put it this way. When I was having lessons with Phil, I was learning to read music. I'm very, very dyslexic. I've suffered from dyslexia since day one, and one of the things that it really affects is my confidence of reading out loud. In school, I used to get myself in all manner of little pickles, as you do, reading a line and then reading part of the next line and then reading, and the class would be cracking up and I'd be getting more and more nervous, and it was just something that haunted me. And so when it came to reading music, occasionally the music would appear to jump around the stave, and I'd be like, oh God, am I playing the right thing? So I'd always sort of been off put. I did a graded classical guitar exam, and I did a guitar exam at college, and I learnt it by ear, and I had the music in front of me, and I even had the audacity to get the teacher to turn the page. And that's true. The teacher was looking, and I was like, and I played the next bit, and I passed my college exam, and I was in a band at the time, and the drummer's brother learned classical guitar. His father was it was the brother. The brother played classical guitar, and so he taught me a piece from his graded exams, and I played that at my college exam, and turn a page. Thanks. I could have been reading the Beano, and it wouldn't have really mattered. But so I wasn't that confident with reading music, and I got a phone call from the guys at Lick Library, which was Total Accuracy, and they said, we've been told that you're good at transcribing, and I transcribed like 1 or 2 columns for guitar techniques, sort of a few pages of examples. That wasn't writing a book. And so they said, we've got a RadioHead book, Jam with RadioHead. And I was like, oh my God, I know those books. This is a big opportunity. And could you write it? And I went, yes, of course. Shit. Oh no, I've just said yes. So my girlfriend at the time, and I swear to God this is true, I have the book on the shelf out there, bought me a book called How to Read Music. And I'm going to confess this now on video. If any of you out there, older people, own Jam with Radiohead Volume 1 and Jam with Radiohead Volume 2, they were written by me opening this book and going, what's that sign? Phil, if I'm doing this, what sign? You need that sign, thanks. That's how I wrote those 2 books.
Okay, I have Volume 1. I'm pretty sure it's right outside that door. I've got like the Jam with Thin Lizzy, Jam with AC/DC, and I've got Jam with Radiohead. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. That book was me learning how to write music. That is absolutely true.
But isn't it? It's no different to like when you see actors who on their CV say they have like horse riding or skateboarding, and they can't do those things, and then they go off and learn it in the time that it takes for the audition.
Yes. Yeah. I guess so. Yeah, it might be a bit harder to ride a horse. I don't know, but yeah, I get where you're coming from, Andy. Yes, I basically learnt on the job. It was a case of it was an opportunity, and it was an opportunity to have a guitar book published, a transcription book, be able to go into the local music store and go, I wrote that. And then I had to do the CD as well, and I'd done a couple of sessions, but that was quite scary. But again, once you get into it and you put yourself in that environment, then it worked.
Wow.
Yes, thankfully.
I don't want to like psychoanalyze, but it sounds like because you mentioned you had dyslexia and you were at school like shaking. Maybe that put you in a position where you confronted those fears or those experiences.
Quite possibly, yeah, quite possibly. I think there was a big part of trying to prove that I could do it because a lot of my friends had sort of settled into working, taking jobs, and I always remember sitting with my friend in his 1600 Cortina, listening to Summer of '69, going, that's going to be us one day, when we were sort of like kids, and trying to keep that sort of romanticism, I guess, about playing music alive. Obviously, in reality, it's nothing like that, it's I think maybe that had something to do with my drive, possibly. Yeah.
Could we talk a moment about the unromantic side of what you do? So people that have just picked up a guitar or in that romantic part of their lives where guitar is everything, and maybe people that are younger with less responsibilities, so that sort of age, that sort of demographic. What are the things that are not so romantic about what you do?
Being away from your family, being away from friends. I spent on my path to sort of getting to a point. I would take any gig, and I ended up in a covers band, and I was in a covers band in the late 90s all the way through to about 2008, 2009, we played 3 nights a week without fail. So whilst all my friends are out boozing and whatnot, I was playing 3-hour cover sets, and I'd finish one gig and then I'd go into the centre of London and start playing in another like late night bar. And there was a lot of experiences like that. I finished a gig and now I'm off, and I talking about unromantic side of things, when you're trying to make a living, imagine me in a 70s wedding band. Yeah, all of those kind of things, which, you're learning your craft. And I was young and standing there in a feather boa and, playing I Will Survive. There's a few darker moments like that, Andy, knocking around in the cupboard. But I guess on a serious note, being away from home, living on a tour bus, it is fun. But when I was doing the Floyd show, I'd be on a tour bus across America for sort of 3 months at a time, and you would be living in a bus 5 nights a week. And that's pretty hard. I missed my brother's wedding. I missed the birth of my niece. There's been lots of sort of things that went on, family occasions and big things where, I remember my brother, when he got married, sending a telegram, being really upset, writing out an email and sending it to my cousin so that he could read it out on the day. And I was, who knows where I was. A lot of that, when my daughter was born, having a fiance and a baby, and then sort of, we got to pay the bills. I'm a musician. I don't get maternity leave. So I'm off now to Denmark to be on tour for 3 months doing We Will Rock You. And then, as I said about the Symphonic Queen thing, I ended up doing the Symphonic Queen show, and I went straight into another show in Madrid for another 3 months. And I was away from home for 6 months solid with no break. And that's harsh, and that puts a lot of strain on your personal life, that puts a lot of strain on you, having a relationship with your 2-year-old daughter on Skype is hard. So that's probably the unromantic side of it. To many, when I was young and single and, worried about nothing apart from, getting my next gig, I guess, then it was fun, because there would be a tour. Yeah, I've got a tour. And all my friends were like, where are you? And I'd sort of randomly arrive in the pub on Christmas Eve. I'm back, But I guess that's the unromantic side, the travelling and the being away from home. And being on that kind of work, there's a lot of time preparation, a lot of rehearsing, a lot of sitting around and waiting for that 2 hours of a show. That 2 hours, it's fantastic. I absolutely, I love it. And but it's the I guess it's the waiting and the travelling and the being away from home.
Sure.
Yeah.
But at least you're at a stage of your career now where it seems to be like you're in a position where you can not sit back and relax, but certainly not stress about the next gig. Is that?
Well, until COVID hit.
Until the current situation.
The current situation, I have to admit, the current situation for me has actually been okay. I've opened up different doors, and this is where the internet generation is such a fantastic thing, because now I'm embarking on different ideas and work with Mesa Boogie that we've never done before, and I'm working for a university, the Waterbury University down in Brighton, and I live in Stockholm. So I produce all of my lectures, and they're all uploaded. So, but there is a bit of me that sort of doesn't take the stuff that I don't really want to do. I was meant to do a tour for Live Nation in October, which was with the Stockholm Symphony Orchestra. That was going to be a lot of fun. And it wasn't many dates, but it was a bunch of arenas around Scandinavia playing classic 70s and 80s hard rock with a orchestra. So
that sounds fun.
That was fun. That was going to be fun. So, but I'm also now, I don't want to jinx it, and I shouldn't say too much about it, but a friend of mine here in Stockholm, a brilliant guitar player, my friend Michelle, we've done We Will Rock You everywhere together. We've written a show. So, there was talks were starting, and then the COVID thing hit, and so everything's gone on hold. So it would be nice to get to a point at some point with that idea, because it is a good idea. I don't want to go into it now in case it doesn't evolve into anything, but I can't see that it won't. But being in a point where I'm now, I've just turned 49. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing this a very long time, and it's whether or not I want to get to, say, being in my 60s and still touring, you know? Oops.
I've just lost Jimi.
Hang on a minute. I've lost.
Maybe. He's coming back. There we go. You're back.
We're back. I lost you. I lost you there. I lost you. We're back.
I got you when you said you were 39.
39. 29. No, I've just turned 49, and so there is a thing about, do I want to be sort of in my 60s still chasing the gig? And so it would be nice to get to a point of where, if the show is successful, you know, have another however many years of playing, and then maybe sit back and be a bit more of a producer of a show, and do more in my studio. You know, I love mixing, and I'm just about to mix the new album for Dave Kilminster from Roger Waters' band. So I've done his last 2 solo albums. So it would be nice to push that side of things a little bit more. But you know, when you say about picking and choosing, I still like to be relevant, I guess, after all these years, and still be doing it. I think that's a difficult thing to accept, and Phil spoke to me about this. You know, he was like, "Oh, I'm getting older, and you will get older, and sooner or later, you know, there's going to be that new batch of guys," and that is starting to happen. So I think it's just trying to find some way of settling into a point of your career where you're comfortable with yourself, you're comfortable with you, and you're doing things that I still like to put out things that I think are good, you know, and still do tours that I feel proud of, if that makes sense.
It does. It's nice to hear that you are at a stage where you can kind of pick and choose, but you're in a nice sort of choosing. Everything sounds, you know, it sounds very romantic to me, sitting here hearing all the positive stuff.
Yes, yeah.
You said that you like mix.
There is.
Sorry, carry on.
No, you know, with the positive stuff, there is the negative stuff as well. You know, there is that point of, I need a job. I have a child, and you know, so, and moving to Sweden as well, moving my life here to start a family, and then investing in building a studio. And so, you know, there is obviously a part of needing to keep and maintain a decent amount of work. Mm-hmm.
And do you have any like residuals with what you do? So is there any form of passive income, or is it all, you know, paid for by the hour what you do? Do you still get paid for like the total accuracy stuff or things like that?
Yeah. Oh. How can I put this in a... No, I'm going to put this... I don't get royalties off of everything that I do.
Right. Thank you for the answer, no matter what it was. I'm just interested. As session musicians, you normally hired guns, you know, and
yeah, there are certain things at Lick Library, and this is no disrespect to the Lick Library people. It's just their business model. But certain things I do get a royalty for, certain things I don't get a royalty for. And also, certain times you just go, I'm going to take that job for money rather than there's no advances. I probably shouldn't say that, but there are other things that I do that earn royalties. I have books out that earn royalties. I have one of my songs that I wrote, an instrumental, that's signed to Sony. That brings in some royalties. There are certain things that trickle along, and some of the more recent projects that I've done for Lick Library, I'm more in a position now to do royalty work than maybe I was 10 years ago. When you I need this.
Yeah.
I better just do that job and take that money. So, so now I'm able, and also, that Lick Library is changing and evolving, and I think that there's going to be more opportunities for filming from your own studio. So again, that takes the stress off of, traveling to England. I'm going to go to England because that's the other thing that people don't realize is how quickly those DVDs are shot. I filmed the whole of 1984 in 3.5 days.
I think I remember seeing on your social media that I'm just going into the studio to film this. And then I remember a few days later, I finished. What? Whatever it was you were doing back then, I was very surprised by the turnaround that you were expected to have.
It is, it is a little bit sausage factory sometimes. So again, there is an element of that instilling that idea that Phil put into me in my lessons of poo or get off the pot. So get your stuff learnt, get your stuff recorded, and get your stuff, transcribed and written and ready, so that when you go into the studio to film, you are prepared. So generally on those jobs, I try to do sort of 3 or 4 songs a day. Sometimes it will be 5 songs. It depends how quick. Danny Gill, my God, he is just like he'll do like 2 DVDs in like 3 or 4 days. I don't know how he does it, to be honest with you. I don't have the attention span, and I drink too much tea. I've played a chord. I need a cup of tea, but he is very meticulous with the way that he does it. So, it will be nice. I've got to get a blacked area in the big room here, so some stage curtains and move everything for filming, because right now all of my YouTube stuff and my Guitar Interactive stuff I film in this room, which I think looks really cool, but for Lick Library they have a certain model of how they want things to look. So I've got to get that set up, and we've got to do some tests and make sure that it fits with the model that they have, and hopefully if it does, then I'll produce some stuff from here. But again, I have some other things that are a little bit at the minute, so we'll see.
That's exciting.
I don't really relish sort of having to travel to London to film. Van Halen 2 is one of the things that we got on the table, and I think that Spanish Fly, doing that vocally, teaching that is going to be quite an undertaking. So, and then another one that I have on the table is The Wall by Pink Floyd. So it would be nice to be able to film them at my pace in my studio, I think.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I'd be hung, drawn and quartered if we didn't talk about gear, because lots of people come to my channel for guitar gear. One thing I noticed about you as a player is that you seem to have like a stock list of gear that I've always seen you with. So I'm sure you also enjoy gear, but you seem to have your tools. And is that something you'd say?
Yeah, it's kind of stupid because I left the guitar, at my apartment. I've just suddenly realised, I haven't got my guitar. I have one certain Music Man that I've been playing for 21 years. And that's the old brown one. And when you turn it over the back, it is absolutely shredded. So I use that a lot. It's like an old pair of shoes. I have a couple of other Music Mans that I tend to go for. I have this one here. This is a pretty one. This was to celebrate 20 years with Music Man. They granted my wish and built me my own designed axis, because I'm kind of known for playing this shape. So this guitar had a few different influences. It had a bit of Brian May in there, and so I always liked the Fast Track hot rail. That's in my old Telecaster over there, which is the guitar that I kind of started out on. We have a boost control on here. We have when you push the tone control, it brings in the neck pickup, so you can have the neck and the bridge together. It's got a piezo output. It's a mahogany body, a nice roasted maple. So and it's a buffered output as well. So it's got a really nice sort of a good signal coming out of it. So, but yeah, that was kind of my dream guitar, I guess. But I still play the old brown one. I still always play that brown guitar. I play that one. I've got a black Silhouette that I use a lot. I have 14 of those guitars of the Axis in total. There's quite a few that you guys don't get to see on the videos. I have a red Music Man Van Halen that I play a lot. And I have a green Axis Tribute, which that's a kind of a cool guitar, because Music Man made this run of guitars called the Tribute, and it was to celebrate so many years. And I think that was in 2011, and they made like 20 of them, 120 of them. What am I saying? And so when I got the gig with Henry Rollins, I wanted another Floyd guitar. So I spoke to my friends in America and said, I'd like another Floyd Axis. They were like, okay, cool. What color would you like? I said, this green. And they said, that's Tribute green. What does that mean? Well, it was a limited run. So they went, okay, we'll make another one. So there's now 121, which was pretty cool. So yeah, it's always Music Man guitars, occasionally the Brian May guitars, occasionally my Telecasters. I have my old Jerry Donahue Tele up there that I've used since 1993. I based that guitar on Richie Kotzen's Telecaster when he was in Poison, and it was funny. Richie eventually came to my house in early 2000s and played on my album, and he played that guitar. So it was kind of like a full circle kind of thing. Yeah, that when I was a young kid and going to see him play with Poison at the Hammersmith, and then eventually he was sitting in my house playing a solo on one of my tunes with that guitar. That was very cool. So those are the guitars that I sort of use, and lots of boogie amps. Lots of. I tend to use the mini rectifier a lot over here. I use a lot of the Two Notes stuff. I'm a big fan of Two Notes gear, as you know, Andy, a fellow fan of Two Notes. So
dotted around here.
Yes. So yeah, it's mainly Two Notes and boogie stuff. Some MXR pedals, but I have. Some of you can see just in the corner here. I have the Rack of Doom here. I get a lot of people ask, why? Why do you have that rack? And the question is, why not? You know, my response, to that question. I'm a gear freak, and I've collected a lot of gear over the years, and I like using amps. And so I built several versions of this rack, and they were all a bit crap. So eventually I met a guy called Nigel Knight who builds stuff for Brian May, and he built me that rack in time for the Henry Rollins tour. So it's basically, I've got some trays. I don't know whether you're going to be able to see them really. Can you see them on the video? Yeah, just about. I've got some trays of pedals, a couple of trays. The pedal trays are the front end pedals. And then I really like these old Line 6 rack mounts. I've got them in my studio rack. I've used them forever, and they just kind of do what I want them to do. So they were always in the post effects And the rack is wide in a way. It's a really stable rack the way it was designed and built. But nowadays I use the Two Notes Captor X to do wet, dry, wet with it. So for a touring rig, I'm pretty fortunate that I get to do tours where I'm able to use a rig like that. I've never really got on with the digital stuff, Kempers and Axe effects. I know a lot of guys do, and they sound great. But for me, I've just never really gravitated to that. So it's a silent rig. Mm-hmm. And I have boogie cabs out there, but they never really get used now. It's all just done with the two-note stuff. But if I'm doing a travel gig, then I just use the mini rec, and that's it. And I think the last tour I did with that, I had the mini rec and a two-notes unit and a Moore red truck, and it sounded fantastic.
I'm a big fan of the red truck. I think it's awesome for the size and the price and everything it delivers. Yeah. So it depends. Really. I have a lot of gear. Sometimes I use these little preamp pedals with the Cab M, and I integrate those with my iPad using my friend Danny Gomez designed this Omec teleport pedal, which is like a digital interface. So I come out of a preamp pedal into Cab M. The main XLR goes out. That's my dry signal, and then the 1/4 inch feeds the Omec, which goes into my iPad, which has like chorus and delay, and then I come out of the Omec in stereo, and that's so we get wet, dry, wet, and it fits in a shoulder bag. So what software are you using on the iPad?
Bias Effects.
Yeah.
I feel a bit guilty for that because I programmed the Brian May Amplitude software, but the problem I find with that on the iPad, I can't switch the amps off.
Yeah.
So had that been the case that I could switch the amps off, I'd use that. So I'm only really using it for a bit of chorus and a bit of delay, but that's why. But I do use Amplitude when I'm recording. I don't really use it for guitar. Occasionally I might use some of the unusual sounds of the Brian May thing, like the D key amp or something, but I use it a lot. All my bass stuff is recorded with those amps, with the Ampeg amps. So, But yeah, lots of gear. But the rack is awesome, you know.
But it's pretty synonymous with you now, you know, Jimi and the Rack and the Music Man and all that sort of stuff. For me, that is part of you and your brand.
Yeah, I just like that, and I couldn't see the point of when I came to building a new setup. I've got in the bottom tray, I've got a really old Univibe, like a big one, and why would I sell that or just put it in a box and use a modelled one? I want that one, you know. I want to use that. So I stuck to my guns and stuck with analog pedals and it's just really heavy. But luckily I have a man who wheels it around when I do gigs, and if I'm doing a gig where I don't have a man who wheels it around, then I take the iPad.
What I'd do for a man or a group of people to do that for me.
Yeah, I have to say that on the shows that I play here, the crew, they work harder than us. You know,
True, man.
There's some great men and women on those shows. You know, doing the video and the sound making those gigs really work. So, and a lot of those people, sadly, right now have no income as well. Very, very strange and bad times. So hopefully, I know that the English government are looking to do something now to inject some money into the arts. I hope that the Swedish government, I hope that all of around the world this is put right, because it's not just the artists that suffer, it's the crew, it's the sound guys, it's the lighting designers, it's that's the job that my partner works in. So she's been very much affected by that. So
yeah, we don't know what's coming, but hopefully it will bring some attention to that wasn't there before. You know,
yes.
we could get a silver lining here.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
So,
I really hope so. There's, I have to talk to you about Brian May. Brian May is my absolute guitar hero.
Yes.
And I don't know what to say, basically.
Yeah, I didn't know what to say at first. I learned guitar. I used to mime on my grandmother's breadboard to Bohemian Rhapsody in my pajamas. Yeah, I have the breadboard. My grandfather I saw my grandfather. It was a few years ago. I went to visit him and took my new partner and my daughter, and he went, "Oh, here's the breadboard." So we have it here in Sweden. Yeah, and it was a round breadboard with a handle, and we used to go out walking on Wimbledon Common, looking for wombles in the afternoon, and then this was 1975, and then we come back, and my gran would make Sunday tea, and my mum would get me ready for bed, and I'd have my pajamas and my dressing gown, and Bohemian Rhapsody come on, and I used to stand there with the breadboard, and I'd do guitar for the whole family. And I told Brian that story. It was
wow.
Yeah, because he was like a superhero when you see him in those videos, all the white and the smoke, and I was like, I'm doing that. So when I got the opportunity to play with him, and it was I haven't really thought about it in a while, but it was pretty cool. Yeah.
But it's a testament to the hard work you've put in it, at the very least, you know.
Yeah. He's an absolute gentleman, and he's very generous as a guitar player, and very generous with his knowledge. But also at the same time, I'd be sitting there noodling, and he'd come over. What did you just play? Oh, show me that. And you're like, I'm showing Brian May some things, or the first rehearsal, because the first gig I did with Brian was Hyde Park. And that was a big gig. That was Terry Wogan got my name wrong. Shame on him. Which was
what did he call you?
He called me James.
Oh,
James Humphries. And at this point, if any of you ever see the the video of the proms, I'm standing there and all the backing singers start going, "Ooh, James," taking the mickey, to which I turn round and mouth a word that starts with an F and went, "James," like this. And that was the point that the BBC cameras point to me. Yeah, and you see me like that going, "Hey, James," like, we have James Humphries on guitar, and I'm, what? And that got caught. A few million people saw my Brian May debut with me. Yeah. So I always it's always me. Why did I do that? You know, why did I just not stand there and go, "It's Terry Wogan," you know, blankety blank. And
to be fair, he could pretty much do what he wanted. I think.
Yeah, you know, legend.
Terry Wogan.
So but on that first rehearsal, I was with Black Star at the time, so I had my Black Star set up. Brian lent me one of his guitars that I had for a long time. His green Guyton. I had that at my house for many months. He was, "Oh, you might as well use that one, Jimi." And I had Brian Harold May on the case, and I used to just put it on the floor in my house and just stare at it, and just, Brian May's lent me a guitar. Yeah, so I had that Guyton for a long time, and we were in rehearsals on the first day, and we broke for a cup of tea, and so I was just standing there looking. You know, all my gear had been picked up the day before. They'd sent a truck down, and I had a guitar tech on that. He'd done everything. It was you know, it's that level where you get to. I had Jeff Beck's tech, which was Steve Pryor, and I'd finish playing, and he'd come over with a towel and a drink, and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You know, just not used to this treatment. And I remember finishing and standing there looking at Brian's gear, and Brian's like, "Oh, do you want to have a go?" And just holding
on the old lady.
Oh yeah.
Oh mate.
And standing there and just playing an A chord really loud through 3 Voxes, and looking round with this, my eyes were smiling, you know. it was very cool. So it was I think that's the thing, that if people know who I am or know about my career, they know the Brian May thing and the Lick Library thing. I think those are the two moments that those are the crowning glories. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. There's one thing you said you liked mixing and,
Yes.
and recording tracks. You obviously hear and listen to a lot of music and sound generally.
Yes.
How do you take care of your ears?
Well, I as now I'm wearing in-ear molds, and I have little ear protectors. So even if I'm rehearsing in an environment where we're not on in-ears, I've always looked after my ears, and I've been wearing ACS in-ear protectors, they're just earplugs for probably about 20 years now. So I've always been very conscious of that. And even, it's a bit of an old bloke thing to do, but even if I go to a gig, I take my earplugs with me.
Yeah. I do too. I was not so careful in my early 20s, so I'm paying for it now, you know.
Yeah, no, I was always pretty good. I was in a band for 10 years with Russell Gilbrook on drums. Russell Gilbrook is the drummer of Uriah Heep. And that man is very loud. And it was quite early on, you know, playing 3 nights a week with Russ was a bit like, I need to get some hearing protection. I'm not going to be able to hear. So, yes.
Amazing. What a list. I always ask this to people when we kind of round off the conversation, and that is, if you, Jamie, or James, whichever you prefer.
I'm not talking to you now, Andy. James? Yes.
Andrew here. Jamie, if you were starting off again, or you had someone who came to you, you know, in these internet times.
Yes.
What would you do differently, or how would you take advantage of the current situation compared to what you grew up with?
Can I be really honest?
Yeah, please, absolutely, please.
I wouldn't change a thing. I really wouldn't change a thing, because I think that I experienced a fantastic guitar teacher firsthand. I was introduced to music, you know, in my lessons. I was tested in my lessons. I was pushed in my lessons, and I struggled to get out there. And there was such a sense of achievement of when all of a sudden you've got, you know, these days, and I please people watching this, I'm not taking anything away from it, is because I have a YouTube channel and I've got about 10 people on it. So I'm fully aware of how difficult it is to promote yourself on YouTube. But saying that, you do have an instant platform for people to see you. Back when I was up and coming, you didn't have that. And to get to a point of where I had a magazine article and I'd go to a guitar show and someone would go, oh, you're that guy in that guitar magazine. Or I'd go onto a booth and a guitar company or a manufacturer would be like, oh, Jamie, we've seen your stuff. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm starting to climb that ladder. I don't think I'd change anything, really. There was... I used to go into the local guitar store with like 20 quid and choose a video. What video out of all these VHSs? And I've got stacks of guitar VHS videos. I remember going into one shop, Underground Sounds in Tunbridge Wells, going in there with 20 quid and going to buy Reb Beach Cutting Loose because I wanted some licks. And the guy behind the counter was like, really? You want to get that one? I was like, yeah, but you know, shreds. He said, you're not going to learn much from it. He said, get that one, Steve Moore. So I went, oh, yeah, I've seen him. He plays those cool guitars with the little headstock. Music Man. And so he said, I would get that. So I got Steve Moore's Power Lines and was just absolutely blown away. And to this day, I still use, you know, Steve Moore's Power Lines. It didn't just teach you 7 shapes of the major scale. It taught you, there were 21 fingerings. So you played.
Write that down.
Yeah, you played off of. Yeah, you should really check it out. It's you have 7 shapes, but you start from your first finger, your second finger, or and your third and fourth. So it incorporates some hybrid 3-note per string and 2-note per string patterns, and some traditional cage stuff, but plays it modally. So by the time I went and saw Phil, and he taught me my regular 3-note per string and my caged, I went, hang on a minute, a big light bulb moment. This is like that stuff I learned on Steve Morse. And so then I was connecting all these shapes and thinking more about the scale as just the scale, not as a mode, which makes me a key center player. I meant to mention that earlier. I don't think so much about modes. I think more about the relationship between the chord. So if I'm playing chord 2, I think of the notes of chord 2, but then the notes that will imply that harmony of that mode. So, just things like that discovery. And Steve Morse has become a good friend over the years, and I've had the privilege of playing with him a couple of times. But just to have that experience of going into a shop and having that choice of that video or that one, do you take the blue pill or the red pill? And I went with the blue pill, and it was, that Steve Morse video unlocked so much. And I think now you can go, Steve Morse playing this, or, tortoise humping a shoe. You can see anything that you like, and it's kind of taken, for me, it takes it's a bit much. It's information overload. But
I agree. I'm very very thankful of it.
Yes, so am I.
But also, you really need to be able to restrain yourself.
Yes, yeah. And I sometimes get slightly upset at the comments and some people's approach to things online. I get a bit like, oh, come on, you give someone a platform. But I'm not going to go down that route. I wouldn't change anything. I really wouldn't. But I embrace the internet now very much, and I embrace YouTube now, and I feel very proud to have been on that. I took a Skype lesson with Andy Wood a little while ago. Because Andy's just one of my favourite guitarists, and we've spoken a lot. And Andy came on. He was, oh man, this is so weird. I said, why? And he was like, you were one of the first international guys that I knew of. And having that, I was like, holy shit, I had the guitarist from the Monuments wrote to me and was like, Jimi, I used to read your stuff as a kid. And all of a sudden you're like, holy shit. So these people that are that are really big now online were reading my columns or watching my early DVDs. So I feel very proud of those things and being a part of a very small part, don't get me wrong, of a much bigger picture now of the way it's exploded. But
I can genuinely say that without people such as yourself and the other guys in your sort of area at that time, I probably would not have been able to pick up a guitar. It changed everything. I couldn't get a teacher very well. I had one lesson in my life, and he sat me in the corner of a room with a chord sheet, which I didn't know what it was. He didn't explain anything.
Nice.
He said, go and play that. Yeah. And then he focused on his favourite student. And I was sat facing the wall thinking, I don't know what I should be doing right now.
Yes, yeah. And
that put me off, for a long time. And then I found I was more total guitar than anything. I found that more accessible.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, it was just, okay, here's the latest song, which was whatever, and then there might be some throwback to Hendrix sort of every 7 months. And it was guys like you and Danny Gill and Stuart Ball and Bull and everything. Without you guys, I wouldn't be a guitar player.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. It's very kind.
I need to go and learn some more licks, however, but...
Well, you're gonna have nightmares about the click. I'm gonna send you it. Over.
It's going to be my ringtone. I did actually dig out. I just got some magazines from 1996.
Wow.
When I was last over in England, I dug some out from the shed.
Yes.
So it's very strange to be sat here talking to you now in a very positive way.
Splendid. Yeah. No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for giving up the time. And there is so much info there that to the people watching this, go back and watch it again, because that is a long list of experiences. And I know it seems to be a recurring theme in this series that the people that I talk to have said, do it or don't do it.
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
Being Yoda or whatever, but there is no try. You either go all in and you commit or you don't. And I can certainly attest to that.
Yeah. I committed big style. I made a lot of sacrifices and a lot of things, but as I said, I would not change a thing. I've loved it. I've hated it, but I love it. and now, as I become, I'm 50 next year, and start to get to that point in my life, it's now evolving again. Now it's embracing the internet, and although it sounds like I'm not like being an old fart, like trying to work the internet. My YouTube channel I launched 10 years ago, but really didn't do anything with it because I was always on tour. So now it's kind of having a family. Now it's taking the time to go. I'm going to embrace that medium and learning about video. I think that's another interesting thing though. Is as a guitar player, I think it's not so much about playing guitar anymore. I think there's a lot to do about understanding social media. There's a lot to do about understanding how to be a personality. Yourself, Andy, your fantastic personality on YouTube, and people who are engaging to watch, as well as editing video, as well as editing audio, but also being able to play and back it up with playing. So I think it's very different now.
Yeah, it's a very different job, but same chord. Just don't be a dick. Is probably rule number one. I think.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so what is your YouTube channel? Let's try and get you to 11 subscribers.
Do you know what? I don't know. I think it's JH Music Man.
For some reason, I will put it underneath in this video description.
For some reason, when I set it up, I was like, I'll be a bit anonymous.
Well, that is genuinely why I have the Guitar Geek. Genuinely, I set that up. I didn't want to go in under my own name.
Well, I was it wasn't very imaginative. It was Jimi Humphries and I play a Music Man. So I have some stuff on there. But if I could get up to 11 or 11 and a half subscribers, that would be great. But
I'm already subbed, so I can't give you any more.
I know you are, mate, and you've made some very lovely comments on my videos, and I was genuinely touched that such a YouTube guitar personality as yourself would view my video. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, and we'll chat in a year when you've got like 50 or 100.
Yeah. Oh, that's my age. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Jimi, thanks, man.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Again, thank you to Jimi for all that time he spent with me and for answering so many questions that were burning inside me for years. He has so many anecdotes and so much advice for players that I hope you took something away from it. Also, thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. You are now officially a member of the End of the Video Club. That means that you are part of a prestigious elite that not everybody is, and to prove that you are, when you're leaving your comment on this video and saying how cool Jimi is, please also include the phrase, Brian May, Jimi will. So go do that, and when you're finished, I'll see you in one of these videos right here. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.